I left the show tonight, and I feel hopeful once. Another chance, another lie. This lack of sleep, these lack of worlds that are unique. Oh, bottle, keep me warm tonight.
Welcome to My Comic Shop History. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. For this episode, I'm joined by two very special guests. To my left is Matt Casey, a former employee of the store. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And across from me is Rich Roney. Rich is Alternate Reality's owner Steve Odo's best and oldest friend, and a great friend to all of us. He's sort of the elder statesman of our community here. Rich, thank you for taking part in this.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get right into it. So now, Matt, it's funny to call you Matt because I only ever call you Casey. Do you have a preference?
No, everyone I know has been calling me Casey my entire life, so yeah.
Fair enough. So, Casey, this is the first time, actually, that you've been in the store in years.
Yeah, the last time I was in here was when you were shooting your documentary, and I was sitting pretty much where I'm sitting right now, and it was 5 years ago. And when you told me that, I didn't believe you at first, but yeah, it's 5 years. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, so what's kept you away?
Work, work and just general life. People kind of flow in and out of the store, every once in a while. I'm sure there are customers here who took a couple of years off and came back in. And, also the distance. I live in South Brooklyn, so it is a trek to get up here.
What were your impressions when you stepped foot in the store today for the first time after all that time?
I was amazed by how little has changed in that 5 years. I did a lap around the store, and I started seeing things that were there when I worked here in the early 2000s, and stuff that I remember pricing out. And there's my handwriting on the stuff, and it's in the same exact spot, if not obscured by other boxes of indeterminate origin. It's amazing how little has changed in this place. Yeah, and I don't say that as like a good thing.
I do have to echo that. There are definitely things that have been here for as long as, as far back as when I started working here, which is kind of scary. Now, Rich, you are here on a much more regular basis.
I come in probably at least twice a month. As a few people know, 15 years ago, I moved to New Jersey. It's a healthy drive to get here, so it's a little bit of a haul. It's about an hour and a half drive to get here. But I have been coming here virtually since the store opened. I think it's been over 22 years, and you guys will hear more about this later. I've made great friendships through this store. But it's always been kind of a clubhouse. I've seen many people, different owners, different workers, made friendships with many of them. So it's been tremendously enjoyable to come here and hang out and just work on projects, talk about what we read, talk about other things we're doing, just from a kind of a societal level, for friendship level.
So, Rich, in the introduction, I described you as the elder statesman of our group. I see you very much as, the pre-52 version of the Alan Scott Green Lantern character from the comics. In that pre-52 version, the Justice Society of America was the older team, the example that all the younger teams aspired to. And within the Justice Society, you had Alan Scott, and he was that elder statesman who sort of guided the group. I think it's fair to say, in Casey, you can weigh in. I think you are probably the most beloved member of our group here.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely the glue of the social group, because I can tell you from personal experience, we do the Saturday dinners, and everyone calls in. Oh, we're doing dinner tonight. Well, I don't know. Is Rich Roney coming out? Oh, Rich is not coming out. He's staying in Jersey. Okay, yeah, you know what? I'm not coming out tonight. If Rich isn't coming in, I'm not coming in. I'll see you guys next week. So, if you're not here, stuff doesn't get done in our social group.
It's very, very much so. Even, we were talking before the show started, before we sat down to record, about, what the title of this episode would be. And one of the potential titles is The Rich Roney Seat, which, you want to explain, Matt, what that refers to?
The Rich Roney seat is the seat directly next to Rich when we all go out to dinner. And it's considered a great honor to sit next to Rich. And, basically, blood has been spilled, curses have been hurled in the furtherance of getting that seat.
You guys are being far too generous. Far too generous. I am the elder statesman, I think, just by virtue of sheer age. But I'm the one that's lucked out. I've just made so many great friendships through this thing. So I'm really honored by that.
Well, the feeling's mutual. I mean, I remember the first time you and I met, Rich. I was working here during high school. I think I was a sophomore at the time, so I was probably about 15.
I remember it vividly. I'm a huge Green Lantern Hal Jordan fan, really, really fervent on that level. And there was one, I guess, miniseries, JLA Spectre War, JLA Soul War, and it had Hal Jordan as the Spectre in it. And I was really excited about this. And I remember at that time, Anthony, you were in high school, you were an employee, and the store would give Anthony's pick of the week. I remember that one of the first times we spoke, I picked up this JLA Soul War thing, and you kind of shook your head and go, "Oh, geez, I really wouldn't read that. I don't think it's that good." So I flipped through it and quickly realized that you hit the mark. So that's one book I did not buy, even though it had heroes and characters I enjoyed, and I wanted it to be fantastic. But you gave me good feedback, and it saved me from just a dud of a read.
I mean, in many ways, then, I think we owe our friendship to the fourthrail.com, a now defunct comic book review site. That's what I was basing it on. I mean, the comic came out that day. I hadn't read it yet, but I had read the review previously, and I think they gave it a 1 out of 10. And so I conveyed that to you. But the thing about our first interaction and all of our interactions since that always stood out to me, and I think Matt, you and probably anyone else we talked to can attest to this. Here I was, a kid. You were a fully formed adult. You've been reading comic books for years. You've been coming to the store for years. Yet you treated me as a peer, and you valued my opinion, and you engaged with me again the way you would a peer. And that always really made an impression. It gave me a lot more confidence as I was starting to interact with more people from the store. So I mean, I thank you for that very much.
Listen, I have to reciprocate that both to the two of you and a number of other people we all know as friends. We hang out with. We go to these dinners, and we'll go to conventions. We'll travel together, things like that. If before I tell this one thing, I do want to say, if I could only speak for 30 seconds about my involvement with the store and what I've learned over the past 20 plus years, far and away, I've been lucky enough to make wonderful and lasting friendships. But about what you just said earlier about how we spoke about this, the review you had read and what you had heard, one thing that's been fantastic is every one of you has introduced me to new stuff I never would have read or never would have thought about or never would have pursued, because I'm really, really kind of, stay within the lines. I don't do Elseworlds or, my reading is very standard.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you actually remember the first time you met me? Because I actually remember the very first day I met you, and you scared the shit out of me the first time I met you.
Then I don't.
I remember it vividly. I started working here when I was like 16 years old, and I started working during the summer. We had just either bought a collection or we were selling a collection, or maybe we were moving stuff into a van to take it to a show somewhere. But I walked into the store, and it was a hot day, and you were busy just running long boxes from the back into a van that was in the back. And you were like, flushed red, sweaty, wild eyes. And you came up to me, like, sauntering over to me with his hand out. I was like, "Hi, I'm Rich Roney." I'm like, "Get the hell away from me, you old creep."
And then he proceeded to crush your hand.
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing, but it hurts. It hurts.
Poor Shane Davis had the same view, because I bumped into him in a deli not far from where I live in New Jersey. And he was there with his wife. And I saw him, and I jumped out of my chair. I ran over and go, "You're Shane Davis." And this poor guy, he banged his head against the window trying to get out of the place. So maybe I need to temper my my ability to introduce myself to people.
Yes, your enthusiasm needs to come down a little bit.
Yeah, you have a very enthusiastic handshake. There are many hallmarks of a friendship with Rich Roney. I think two of them, though, that listeners might find amusing are the voicemails that you leave and the handshake. I mean, so let's take the handshake first. It is a firm, almost crushing grip. Yes, would you agree?
It's a firm 3-second grip. It's a man's handshake. It's 3 seconds. How do you do? Move on. Yeah, politician's handshake. Sure.
What I found, though, the hand itself, he's got a mitt. I mean,
yeah.
it's a large hand. It's a strong grip. But what I think adds to it is the step forward that he takes. There's momentum behind it.
I would go above and call it a lunge. Maybe you lunge forward with your hand.
Yeah, I mean, is the handshake? I mean, it must be something that you're mindful of, something that was instilled in you when you were younger. Yes.
I truly don't think so. I mean, right now my mind is racing, thinking about how all the business interactions I've probably ruined in years past by this behavior.
By shattering bones.
No, but I think I keep alternating between calling you Matt and Casey, but I think I think Casey hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's a man's handshake. It it sets a tone, and it conveys power.
Now,
The funny thing is, I haven't actually seen you in several years, so I got the first Rich Roney handshake in several years today. And during, I was like, "Oh God, I forgot how bad this is."
You have to be prepared for it.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't prepared. I
Yeah.
completely forgot. He got me good.
let me try to say this as factually as possible without getting maudlin. But a number of years ago, 7 years ago, my father passed away, and a number of people from the store came to the mass, his funeral mass. And Steve Odo, the owner of the store that I've known since high school, and Bill Mayo, who's a common friend to all three of us. Bill Mayo drove to New Jersey, where my parents had lived and where the mass was being held. And Bill had driven up from Baltimore just to come to this funeral. And that night, I called Bill to thank him. And I remember when I called him to thank him, I was kind of laughing and I said, "My God, Bill, you'll never guess what Steve told me." And Bill just started giggling, and he goes, "I know what he said. He said you got the weakest handshake of all the Roney brothers." And I go, "How did you know that? How did you know that?" And he goes, "That's all Steve spoke about for the hour-and-a-half drive home."
I mean, in addition to the handshake, there's also the voicemail. Now, anyone who has had the privilege, the honor of receiving a phone call, a voicemail from you, has likely heard something along the lines of this. And I hope you know that this impression is
Go
done
for it.
is done only
Go for
is
it.
done only with love and admiration. Hey, Anthony. Hey, this is Rich Roney. It's 12 o'clock on Sunday. So those are sort of the three pillars of a Rich Roney voicemail. It's the thorough greeting, the announcement of your full name, and then also you give the time, which is really funny because I do that now too. And people, younger people have said to me, like, "Why are you doing that? Like, on the phone, it says the time." But I think that's just training from talking to you. I always say the day and the time. I mean, I'm sure, Matt, you've gotten messages.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
no, yeah, same thing. And the declaration of, "Yeah, I am calling you for this specific reason, and I hope to hear from you in person. And if I don't hear from you, then God bless, and I will see you later."
That is, he never puts any pressure on you.
Yes.
Ever. That's greatly appreciated. There's never any expectation or burden. Ever.
No, thank you. Hey, none of this was scripted before, so I'm kind of surprised where this conversation is going. This wasn't in the email you sent me.
Ah, yes. Well, Matt, I want to toss it over to you.
Yes.
Obviously you worked here for a long time. This is probably a larger question, but I mean, generally speaking, what was the experience like working here? Was it a good job to have as a high schooler?
As a high schooler, yes, it was a great job. You're in a comic book store. You're hanging out with your friends. You're doing something you care about. As a high schooler, this is a great job. A little bit older, I got a little bit, as more responsibility was probably pushed on to people that probably shouldn't have been pushed onto, and all that. This place became not as fun. And it's like anything else. It's a job. If you don't treat it with respect, it's going to be terrible. So,
I mean, I have to give you a lot of credit, and if I haven't thanked you before, let me take the opportunity to do so now. You mentioned before the last time you were here was to be filmed for the documentary that I made. You were always someone who people spoke about. I think that having your perspective in the film was really critical. I didn't want the movie to just be a commercial for alternate realities and everybody saying, oh boy, it's great and Steve's really nice and I like it here. And having your perspective as someone who, is willing to voice an opinion counter to what a lot of the other people were saying, I think, in a big part made the movie what it was. So, I mean, I thank you for bringing that perspective and not being afraid to, to kind of voice those opinions.
Well, thank you for that. But I think the one worry that I had afterwards was people went the other direction with it, where they were just, oh, this guy hates Steve. It's like, well, I don't. I do genuinely like Steve. I think he's a good guy, but like any other person, he has flaws. I have flaws. Everyone does. So I didn't want to sit here and just, say, oh, the store was perfect and everything's wonderful and we all hold hands and run in the meadow, from time to time. It's not like that. It's like any other business. There are good times, there are bad times, and, but I didn't like, it wasn't your fault or anything like that, but it was like, I didn't like the reputation of, oh, this is just the guy, he's the bitter ex-employee, and he hates the Steve and he hates the store. It's like, well, that's not true at all. Like, I loved my time here. There are certain parts of the times that I didn't like. There's certain things that happened I didn't like, but that's any job you go to. So,
right. And I think, there were positives that you expressed, and the things that you learned here, and how it prepared you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And working with people that you may have disagreements with, especially when they're your superiors, is a job skill that you need no matter what you do in life. So I'm glad I learned it here.
Now, one thing that I'll ask you, since I have you here and we have the opportunity, this is a failing of mine. Some people weren't exactly clear on where your negative feelings were coming from. I felt it was clear in that there's one moment especially where you talk about Steve's, how he would always try to avoid confrontation, and that seemed to be the crux of a lot of it, but maybe there was more to it, maybe there wasn't, I don't know. But, as you just said, it's not like you hate the guy, there are positive feelings, but for that negative aspect, was there more of a reason that we didn't really get into that time?
No, it was more just, there are certain times where people in the store, and Steve as well, would just say, I'm the victim here, and these are the lists of people that have wronged me and their transgressions. And it's like, well, that's obviously that's one side of the story, but it's not the entire story. And I'm in a position now where it's like, well, I don't work for the store and I'm not a customer here. So there's really nothing stopping me from just voicing what I believe is my opinion. Is my story, is my side the 100% end all be all truth? No, it's one side of the story. Just like he has a side of the story and someone else have an opinion. So, but I didn't agree with how the store is managed insofar as the crushing wreck of a store that this place is. Even looking around it now, I'm looking over your shoulder. There's a showcase full of sealed boxes. God only knows what's in those boxes. Could be bundles of cash for all we know, but this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Where is that a good business decision when you're trying to sell stuff, stuff like that? So,
right. Along similar lines, because I know you listened to the first episode of this where I spoke with Steve, and one of the things we spoke about were some of the negative reactions to his closing announcement. People said that the store looked like a yard sale, and Steve responded to that in the episode, and he took the opposite position. He, he likes the way the store looks. He likes that aspect.
Well, here's my problem. I did listen to the first episode, and you by the way, you're doing a wonderful job with these.
Oh,
Here is my reaction to that. One of the reasons people go to yard sales is so they can find like hidden gems. And what makes it great is I go to a yard sale and I find, let's say, just for sake of argument, Avengers #1, and I buy it for $5. That's an amazing deal. He could have an Avengers 1 in here right now and not know about it, but I go through the store and I find it as a customer and I bring it to his attention. He'll go, wow, what a great find. And then he'll grade it, and then he'll check the price and he'll charge you $10,000 for it. So where is the yard sale aspect? It's either a business or it's not. If you're going to run it like a business, present it like a business. There's a wall of boxes over there covering the entrance to this store. That's just wrong from a safety perspective. Guy walks in here with a shotgun, you're not going to know until he's right on top of you. stuff like that. But if you're going to treat it like a business, you have to present it like a business. If you want it to be a yard sale, let it be a yard sale. But don't be angry when you're losing money and no one else looks at it like a business.
I want to take a minute to kind of to talk about Steve's closing announcement, because I think it's something we probably all had a reaction to. Now, Matt, specifically for you, someone who's not here on a regular basis, did you have any idea that this was even happening prior to seeing the announcement?
No. I think I saw the first hint that I got was you posted something on your Facebook page.
Okay.
Talking about the store's closing, and
I'm doing a podcast.
yeah, apparently, yeah. And once I heard that, then I started looking up the Facebook page for the store. That's when I saw the now famous scathing a letter that Steve posted publicly. So,
what was your reaction when you saw that?
I didn't want to do the knee jerk like, oh, he's such an asshole. This is kind of bullshit, because he's being what he felt he was being genuine. That being said, I think it's disingenuous at best to claim that the store's going under solely because a couple of people didn't pick up their comic books or pick up a statue or pick up, like, hey, you know what? You go to Amazon and they'll give you 25% off everything that you're selling in your store. It's hard to compete with Amazon. They've put 100,000 other businesses out of business. It's tough to compete with the giant killer. So, when you have that situation on top of the fact that this place looks like a rat nest, on top of the fact that, there are other problems here, it's like, well, yeah, the place is going to lose money. And to lay it at the feet of, number 285 or whoever, and he didn't pick up his books, and I think it's a little disingenuous. It's shifting blame when you can fix a lot of the problems that you're talking about. One of the points I loved in your first podcast with Steve, it was, you said, well, your sheet says that they have 3 weeks, so why aren't you doing what your sheet says? And I didn't hear much of an answer from, well, it's
the fine print.
It's the fine print. Well, you're a lawyer. Isn't fine print what you do? And this is your business, so the fine print's important for the bottom line.
Yeah, I think, a frustration that I had when I was talking to him, and I guess I pushed it as far as I felt I could, and I didn't think I was going to get a different response, but specifically with respect to the deposits. And I said, why don't you just take a deposit? If it's such an issue that people are ordering something and they're not buying it, just require a deposit. And his answer was, well, people should be good for their word. And it's like, okay, well, that's well and good, but they're not. And so if the options are take a deposit and maybe piss off a few people or go out of business, wouldn't you take the deposit? It was kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and the way that was danced around was, well, I want to take people at their word. And it's like, well, okay, that's nice, but are you running a business or not?
And it also runs so counter to his feelings about people.
Well, it was
what he says his feelings are about people.
Well, and then the other thing was, well, what if the item is now delayed and I'm holding on to the deposit? Well, then you hold on to the deposit. What's the problem? You put it in an envelope, you throw it in your safe. When the thing comes in, if it doesn't come in, you give the guy his money back. I don't see there's no trap here.
Yeah. Rich, I'm going to toss it to you in a second because I'd love to get your take on that announcement and the news of all of this. But I don't know, sort of my take is I feel like he just doesn't want to do this anymore. And that's fine.
That's perfectly acceptable.
And if he said that, it's okay. I don't think anyone would begrudge him that. If he says, listen, I've been doing this 23 years. I don't really like comics anymore. I don't want to do that. That's fine.
He has the right to retire and spend time with his wife and travel the world. He has that right. He has that absolute right. So if he just said, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to retire, that's fine. But then to lay it at the feet of your customers, that was kind of a shitty thing to do.
And I feel like, again, I know, you weren't here that first Saturday after the announcement, we were all here. And I think, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but the sense that I got, people felt bad that was the tone that was being set and that's the note that he's going out on. Because for all of us who, the store does mean so much to us for many reasons that we've talked about and will continue to talk about. It definitely, not like a slap in the face because it wasn't directed at us, but it's still sort of, I think kind of took away from a lot of what we feel toward the store.
You could have gone out on such a high note, and people would have loved you and respected you. And now the fact that we're having this conversation to begin with, it's like this whole could have been avoided. It really could have. And I don't think and I don't think that's the way he wants to be seen by other people, because I don't think anyone wants to be seen like that.
Right.
But it's again, this is what the situation is because you made it. So please don't try to play the victim later on. Like, this is entirely your situation.
So, Rich, I would love to get your take on that announcement, on that post that Steve put out there when he announced the store was closing. I know you didn't see it on Facebook. You're not on social media, but I know we sent it to you and you had an opportunity to look at it. So, what was your take on it?
Rightly or wrongly, and I think anyone could question his approach, but I think he's just phenomenally tired. He's physically worn out. I think he's tired. I think he wants to get out of it. I don't know if I would have been that pointed in the letter calling out people.
Well, you definitely would not have been.
World's nicest man. No, God, no, you wouldn't have done that.
But, is it the thing to do? And, okay, so a few customers screwed him over. But as you pointed out, as a number of other people pointed out, he had the opportunity to ask for a deposit. And some of the stuff where he did not, if someone changed their mind and didn't want it, some of those things are not so unique that you can't sell them to someone else. I think many of us would never have gone out with that tone, singling out people. But I think this does get back to what you filmed and you excerpted from in the documentary, what I said 5 years ago. I used the phrase, just kind of casually in conversation, the phrase gunnysack. I used it as a noun, but I've since learned it can also be a verb, the word gunnysack. And I've known Steve since I was 15 years old. Steve has really strong feelings about everything. There's no middle ground with him. It's either black or white. There's no middle. It's binary. But he can like you. But if he feels you've betrayed him or you've slighted him or you've insulted him, in the documentary I said, he's going to remember that. He's going to place it in the gunny sack, and he's going to remember it forever. And I think that manifested itself in the Facebook posting. He put certain things hurt him, and he included it in the announcement regarding the shutdown.
I mean, you occupy a unique position within our group. You've known Steve by far the longest. You two went to high school together. So if you wouldn't mind, because I think this is a story that's worth telling and folks might find amusing, what was your first meeting with Steve Otto?
If I can put it in a little bit of context, and for those of you who are listening, we're all smiling amongst ourselves because this is a little bit of a funny story. The context for this thing is I met Steve when I was 15. We met September. I believe both started sophomore year at White Plains High School. But prior to that, that summer, my family moved from Chicago, from a suburb of Chicago to White Plains. So I had the whole summer waiting to go into sophomore year at a brand new school. I moved from a very, very, very small village to White Plains, which was a lot bigger, both in terms of everything going on. Population, pace, neighborhoods were different, a lot more people activity, etc. So I was anxious and nervous the whole way through. So the very first class at White Plains High School, I go in. I happened by dumb luck to sit next to Steve. And this story has been repeated countless times. But I sit down next to Steve, and I introduce myself. I go, "Hi, I'm Rich Roney." And his first words to me are, "You don't smoke, do you?" Now, most people would have reciprocated with their name and said hello. Many of us have always said, I should have answered the question.
But Steve is not most people, so.
When he said, I said, no. And apparently I passed muster. In retrospect, I should have said, do you have a light?
And just imagine we wouldn't be having this conversation right now if you
That's very true.
If you wanted to be a jerk.
Absolutely true.
That's the thing. For as much as we joke,
You would be in the gunny sack right now.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, for as much as we joke, and it has become a running gag that, Rich should have just said yes that first time. But it's true. We likely would not have been here.
When we were in high school, he was a lot more optimistic and more extrovert, more engaged with society and things like that. I do think in some ways the store has worn him down, and he's become a bit of a curmudgeon. But he was much more optimistic, much more upbeat. That's my memory of him in high school.
What sorts of shenanigans would you two get up to? Like, what would you guys do when you would hang out? I mean, would you go to comic book shows, comic book stores, movies? What did you guys used to do?
We were friends in high school. We had mutual friends. But, really 5 months after I started high school, I got a part-time job in a supermarket. And we didn't hang out that much. I mean, Steve was really into music. He was part of the music of the band and all those things. I had my job. We had mutual friends. We had common classes together. We really didn't hang out all that much. I just think over time our friendship sustained itself. We had comic books as a common interest, and candidly, we went our different ways. I was always scared. There were certain girls he thought I should be going out with, and I was afraid he was going to set things up or send communications to them, and I would know about it, and then all of a sudden I'd find like, hey, thanks for the roses.
Doesn't he still try to set you up on dates every once in a while?
No, I think he's finally picked up on the fact that I've tuned him out.
Well, while Rich doesn't have a Facebook profile and doesn't participate on social media
That I know of.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, I don't think Steve's created anything for you, thankfully. But Steve is very active, and he does keep in touch with many of those high school friends. And he does give Rich Roney updates on on what's going on. Who's
Wait.
Who's
Does he
divorced?
Does he give me updates, or does he give others updates on me?
I think it's probably both,
great.
my friend.
Thanks so much.
I know. We know he tries to get you to go to the reunions.
Yes, and
God, is he still doing that?
yes,
Oh my
yes,
God.
he is. Yes, sadly, yes.
But your feeling is you didn't talk to them then. You're not going to talk to them now.
That's precisely it.
That's fair.
That's precisely it. I mean, it's not like I didn't like him. It's just that to go back now after 40 years and go, hey, what's going on?
I've always joked that maybe it's not even so much of a joke, but I've always said if I could time travel, I'd love to go back and hang out with Rich and Steve as contemporaries. I feel like that would be interesting.
That sounds like the worst buddy cop movie I've ever seen in my life. Just two guys arguing about Final Crisis for 20 years.
Probably my sophomore year, my junior year of college, I went to Fordham. Steve went to Yale. I went up to Yale and spent a few days during Easter break or spring break with Steve. Now, I don't know what her name was, but there was some girl that Steve just was passionately, he was romantically, she was the one. Until she broke up with him while we were up there. And I had been meeting a number of the guys that Steve went to school with, and boy, I hit it off with these guys. All of us were having a great time. And at that time, this was pre-cable. On CBS television, like at 11:30, they were going to show the movie Kelly's Heroes. So one of the guys goes, there was about 6 of us. Hey, let's get a couple of pizzas and a case of beer, and let's watch Kelly's Heroes. And when you're at college,
That's a party. But
it's a party.
Yeah.
And you'll stay up till 3, 4 in the morning watching TV. So I'm having fun. I'm eating. We're all hitting it off. The movie's just about to come on. Prior to this girl broke up with Steve. We're not going out anymore. It devastated him. Steve decided to go a few rooms away or down into the basement of the dormitory, and he figured he would be so enraged he could bench press 450 pounds because he'd have so much adrenaline going through him. He learned he couldn't do that.
Yeah, because that's not how science works, unfortunately.
Well, he really felt he'd be like the Hulk and have this berserker rage. And he came back and he was kind of misty and just a freaking mess. Needless to say, I sat up with him till about 4:30 in the morning just letting him talk. I didn't get to see the freaking movie at all. But I was terrified this guy would kind of try to clean and jerk 450 pounds. The weight would fall, break his windpipe, and he'd be laying in some basement somewhere.
But now you had to actually talk him down from doing that, right? You had to talk him out of it?
No, he tried to do it, and he realized he couldn't do it, but he was going to go back, and I realized that might not be a good idea. So I hung out, and I let him talk it out of his system.
Oh, see, I always thought it was like you went into the gym and he was about to try it, and you had to actually stop him.
No,
that's a better version. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Rich Roney, you're a hero.
You are a hero.
You don't even know it.
Now the funny thing is, Steve remembered this, and it shows how the Gunnysack works both ways. The memory. 35 years later, he and Ann, his wife, were at some blockbuster thing going out of business, and he bought it for me, the movie. So about 6 months ago, I finally got to see it, and you know what? It's not that good a movie.
But at 2:00 with 10 beers in you, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
If Rich had been in the gym with Steve in the moment and he had to talk Steve out of it, how do you think Rich would have done it?
Steve. I don't think this is the proper thing to. I'm trying. Steve, I love you, Steve. You're great, but I don't know.
Maybe, but let's not back into it too fast.
Let's table this for now,
right? And we'll come back to it.
Ever the diplomat, Rich. So now, after that and moving forward, I mean, you continue to cultivate your friendship with Steve. You've developed these friendships with all of us. Casey, there's actually something that you said in the documentary that I think it was very powerful. Always stayed with me. I always go back to it. You said, one of my best friends is Rich Roney, and he's old enough to be my father. It sort of changes, your perception of what a friend could or should be. So I thought, and I know, Rich, this is something that you wanted to touch on, sort of the generational aspect of the friendships at the store.
I've been coming into the store probably 6 months after Steve opened it. I've met the two of you. I've met probably 5 or 6 or 7 other guys that I really consider close friends. And if you said to me, hey, you've only got 30 seconds to talk about what's the most important thing you've learned from this story is, and I repeat this, the wonderful and lasting friendships I've had. And there clearly is the generational aspect. I mean, each of you guys could be my son. Sean could be my son. Matt has joked about that when he first introduced me to Sean. He goes, hey, you're going to come meet the son you didn't know you had.
Well, I think the funny part is, now that I'm living in South Brooklyn, I recently got engaged. I'm going to be married next year. Life kind of took me in a different direction, so I haven't been here in 5 years since you shot your documentary, Anthony. But soon as you walked in, it was like no time had passed. Hey, how you doing? Hey, all right, what's going on? Oh, you read this? It's like no time had passed. I haven't seen you in 5 years. No time had passed. It was
I totally echo that. Each of you has ignited or pulled me into things that interested you, and that's extended my breadth of interest.
Well, that's what that's what good friendship should do. You introduce you to new stuff. That's part of being a good friend.
And it's absolutely worked on that level. I mean, like Anthony, all the stuff about your documentary, some of the viewings, the showings, like the Buffalo, and I had the good fortune to go with you up to Buffalo Niagara Film Festival, and that gave me, just seeing it from what you were going through, was an entirely different perspective.
Yeah, it was. It was a blast to have you along for the ride for that, and it was a long ride. But I have to say, for those 6 hours that we were in the car, no joke. I don't think there was any lull in conversation. And that's again a testament to the friendship.
I've just had fantastic new opportunities to learn things by virtue of the things that interested you guys. So thank you for that.
You met us when we were younger. Now like Bill Mayo, he's about the same age as me. You became good friends with him. He's now married, father. So you get to see us at different stages in our life, as opposed to like someone like Steve, where you already grew up with him, and he got married recently. God bless him, and you've already had that sort of life experiences with Steve. Now you're seeing it with the younger guys.
Yeah, and sometimes, in fact, people would think that some of these guys were your kids, right?
Well, Matt is one of them. Matt and I would go across the street on occasion to Gennaro's and get a couple of slices of pizza. Well, what was so weird was, after Matt moved to Brooklyn, I went in there and one of the owners goes, "Hey, Where's your son? You don't come in here with your son anymore?
Well, it's fun. You mentioned the pizza lunch. I mean, that's sort of another part of the Saturday routine. I mean, there's the large gathering that goes out to dinner, but then there's usually a smaller group who you unnecessarily treat to lunch every single time. And we're hoping that once the store closes, we can, maybe put an end to that and actually have you let us buy you pizza for once.
Let's not go crazy.
Yeah, trying to pay for a meal around this guy is just damn near impossible.
And I know you've touched on a couple of times, and I know you want to talk about it, the different eras of the store. But before we get to that specifically, you mentioned a couple seconds ago that your first time the first time you came to the store, it had already been open for what was it, about 6 months or so?
Yes.
So how come you weren't in sooner than that?
When the store first opened, Steve, Kevin, and Gene, as a trio, were the owners, and they opened it up. I was on about a 9-month assignment in Orange, California. When you're 33 years old and you're on the company expense account, half an hour south of Los Angeles, I wasn't coming back here for hell or high water, man.
See, that's the story I want to hear about. Young Rich Roney with a company credit card in Los Angeles. The hell with them in college hanging out. That's what I see with my time machine.
I really loved my time out there. I mean,
racking skulls and taking names.
I mean, I guess this is the point, just for our listeners out there. We won't get into too much detail, but I mean, Rich, you are known for the mystery that surrounds you. We really don't know that much about you. For as much time as we've spent with you, as many phone calls, as many dinners, we really don't know much about you. And I know this is something you cultivate.
I want to help you out. I want to make this easy. So for the first 6 months when Steve was open, I was still in California. And I'm going to totally dodge what you just tried to tee up as a conversation.
Nice dodge.
So I returned from California. My parents had told me that the store is open. For me, over the past 20-plus years, there's been 2 fantastic times. And each of you were part of different eras in that time. There was the one era from, say, the 1996 to the early 2000s, when it was Bill and Drew and Brandon and Matt, and pretty much that was it. Later on, the second generation was really Anthony and Tom and Sean. But I can remember there were times in that first era when I would come in here at 11:30 or 12:30 or 1 o'clock on a Saturday and stay till 9 o'clock at night. And there was always something going on. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, a lot of humor, a lot of just camaraderie. That replicated itself when you and Sean and Tom were running the things. Those, to me, were the best times. Anthony, it replicated itself at that point in time when it was really the trio, you, Tom, and Sean. You kind of re-galvanized it. That was a different generation. I have to say, Anthony, the worst time was at the end of your tour of duty, because I had this tradition of coming in every Wednesday between Christmas and New Year's. I made it a point to come in and work the order, unload, be here every minute. It was just therapeutic for me.
You mean work on the deck of the crab ship, basically?
Not to cut you off, but just as an example of what that entails, and this is not to diminish your contributions at all, because they were highly valued, but there was one instance in particular. Captain America Reborn #1 came out, and we ordered maybe 200 copies. It was a heavy order, and we were breaking down the shipment, and Rich took all of the Captain America Reborn copies, and he went sort of by the end of the back issue bins, and spent, I mean, I don't think I'm exaggerating. 45 minutes to an hour going through all of the copies, counting them, checking for damages. He was so meticulous with it. And then when it came time to actually reading the book, I think you spent maybe 30 seconds flipping through it, and you said,
"It's a piece of crap." Talk about having your expectations set hugely high and then being diminished.
But yes, to speak of those times when you would come in, I know the year that you're you're referring to in particular.
Can I
yeah,
jump
please.
in? White Collar was one of the popular USA cable shows, and you did your White Collar sale.
Yes, we dressed up in fedoras and ties, and we had a themed sale.
Now,
I actually remember seeing the photos for that. goofy as fuck.
Yeah, I was going to ask what your take on it was.
Oh,
I'm not surprised.
God, dude, come on.
If you were still working here and we were like, hey, Matt, we're going to do this thing, what would your reaction be?
Get the fuck away from me. What is wrong with you? Leave me alone.
I mean, I will say, Sean participated, but barely. I think he was nicer about it than you would have been. But he was similar. I think his reaction was sort of like, what is with you guys? And so I think he put on a sweater. Like, he wasn't really into it. He was like half participating.
And you don't half-ass anything, as I've learned with you. So.
No, you gotta go all in, man.
But that's how you guys roll.
That's how we roll, yeah.
But
we did it again with the Burn Notice. We really liked our USA shows.
Yeah.
So we did a Burn Notice version as well.
And just indulge me, I was going to best of times, the worst of times. So the first year, these three guys freaking knock it out of the park. I mean, they have just grand slam. For some reason, there was no other sales that week. There was no shipments. It was an obscure week.
Yeah, especially in recent years, the publishers tend to not put out many, if any, books during that period. So that week in between Christmas and New Year's, I think each DC and Marvel each put out one big book, but that was it.
That was it.
So we still had some people coming in, but it was mainly the back stock that we were trying to sell.
And you sold, I think, in $12,000 or $13,000 between the holidays, even with the holidays. So I was so excited by what these guys did. The following year, I came into this store. I thought it would be so exciting and so wonderful. I came in 3 days out of 4. By the end of that third day, 3 days out of 4, I was so fucking sick of this place. I mean, I went home. All I wanted to do was stand in a hot shower and really just lather up and get the smell of the store out of me.
Welcome to the last 2 years of my tenure here at Alternate Realities, where we're running the Magic tournaments, and I'm screaming at children to, hey, why don't you not throw stuff in the store? Or, hey, why don't you, shower before you show up?
We spoke about your time at the store and working here very generally, but I mean specifically, are there, stories or moments that, that really stand out?
The store that I always go back to is the Jeff Wong hot dog eating contest. It's July 4th. It's me, Steve, and Bill Mayo. And, it's a slow day. No one's coming into the store. Everyone's at the beach or everyone's having a good time. It's July 4th. So, me and Bill are working behind the counter, and we have Channel 4 on, and Channel 4 is showing the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. And it's just background noise. Neither of us are watching it, but it's just background noise. Jeff Wong, the legendary Jeff Wong. God rest him. I love him.
Well, we really don't know what happened to him. In all honesty, our most legendary customer, he hasn't been seen in quite some time.
That was my next question. Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened to Jeff Wong? I don't know. I mean, I wish I could give you an answer. We could speculate.
There's your next podcast.
Yeah, we could. Well, yeah. I mean, we could speculate, but we haven't seen him in some time.
Oh, that's scary.
So Jeff Wong comes in.
So Jeff Wong comes in and he sees the contest going on, and in Jeff fashion, God bless him, he has the. He thinks he can accomplish anything. He goes, "Oh, I could do that. 80 hot dogs, I can do that." I'm like, well, Jeff, it's not as simple as it seems. No, I can do that. All right, Jeff, we're gonna make you prove it. So me and Bill pooled all our money together, and we bought as many hot dogs and hamburger buns as we could, and then we started cooking them in the microwave in the back. It's like, all right, Jeff, if you get through however many. We'll buy all your comics this week for you. We'll buy them for you. Oh, okay. He starts eating them one at a time, very slowly. He gets to number 5, and just completely, slows down. I think he gets as far as 8, and he goes, "Oh, I can't do this anymore." It's like, all right, yeah, you lost. Oh, I really don't feel good now. It's like, all right, well, go sit down. He lays down on the ground behind one of our glass counters out of view. And we were thinking it's a little weird. And then every once in a while, you just hear from the back, oh, he's in real pain. And then the funny postscript to that story is right afterwards, his friend, a buddy of his, came over and polished off like 19 hot dogs. Without even thinking about it. He goes, "Oh, these are good, man. Where'd you get these?" And literally 19 of them. God love Jeff Wong. Just the man has the confidence of a god. He can do anything he puts his mind to.
I think it's his SWAT training, that Special Forces training.
We're not supposed to talk about that. Shut up.
You know, it's so funny, Rich. For someone who guards his own secrets so closely, here you are, ready to expose the secrets of Jeff Wong.
Best defense is a good offense.
I mean, I won't probe too deeply because that's fine. But I guess just going back to the mystery of Rich Roney, yeah, I might not make it out of here. But it's mysterious. I've always said that if you stopped coming in,
You'd never know.
I mean, we'd know you weren't coming in, but that would sort of be it. I mean, we have an address on file for you. We don't know if you actually live there. No one's ever been there. You don't have a landline. In general, there's no home, internet, cable, phone. I looked you up on your company's website. Nothing comes up. So it's one of those things where really all we know about you really comes from the fact that you have this friendship with Steve. If not for that, we would really know nothing.
But if I may say this, not just friendship with Steve, but friendship with you guys.
Oh, yeah, we know. We're all friends.
Jesus
Okay.
Christ.
Jesus
Enough with the
Christ.
fucking friendship. All right, we get it.
I mean, we're not really that good of friends
Well-
anyway.
God, I haven't seen you in 5 years, and I show up, you break my hand with a handshake.
No, seriously, though, in all seriousness, my next question. Is it fair to say that you've made lasting and meaningful friendships at the store?
Yeah, I've been trying to say that for
Now you're just being a dick.
I know.
I've been trying to say that for like an hour.
So, any other stories that come to mind? Jeff Wong related or otherwise?
Yeah. Honestly, and I'm racking my brain. It's been so long since I worked here that it's hard to come up with a story. It's one of those things where people tell a story like, "Oh yeah, I do remember that." I worked here when I was a teenager, and I'm 33 years old now. So it's watercolor memories. Yeah.
I will say a story that overlaps between the two of you, but I don't think you fully realize it. After Matt had quit working here and moved on to other things, you were still, I think, studying for your degree in fire science and all that stuff. And Anthony, you were still in high school working here. And Steve had some idea like, I'll just get, I don't know. Like,
I know where this is going. Yeah.
I'll get Anthony to, I'll just get him to bag and board and alphabetize all those things. And he really enjoys it. And Matt's head spun around like he was like out of The Exorcist. What are you fucking kidding me? Anthony hates that stuff.
I appreciate you sticking up for me.
Oh, you didn't like bagging and boarding comics that were never going to sell anyway?
It wasn't so much the bagging and boarding that I minded. It was the fact that I had to price each of them. I know, I'm getting there. I know. Rich is giving me hand signal just to make sure that I...
No, my empathy and sympathy, how you didn't shove a screwdriver through your ear.
But so what I would have to... So we had to price all the books with the actual price tag, usually not much more than a quarter above cover price. But the real sticking point was I had to write the title and issue number right above the price and then put a piece of tape over it. It was quite the tedious task. Do you remember the time that Steve pulled his back on a Wednesday and was lying on the floor by the door right when we opened?
Yes, and trying my best not to laugh.
So this was a Wednesday. This was during the period where you and I worked together. At that point, I just worked the delivery, and then I went home when you guys opened. But
Yeah.
I remember, I think when I left, Steve was upright. He was okay. And then I had forgotten to pick up, or I guess maybe change my mind about getting Justice #1, the Alex Ross series. And I came back in, and Steve's on the floor, and he still claims that I just walked right over him. For the record, I did ask if he needed help, but he responded the way you would probably expect him to, and so I stepped over him.
Like, meaning like a courteous and kind of retort?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
So I did then step over him, and I picked up the copy. But just that image of him laying on the floor on Wednesday, New Comic Book Day, at opening.
I wonder if he laid in the same spot that Jeff Wong did.
Yeah, there are a number of interesting spots in the store. There's right to my right is where one of our customers' dog took a dump.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that story until today.
Yeah. One of the things that you like to do, Rich, is you like to go to comic book conventions. And when you're there, I know you enjoy, viewing panels. I know that's a great source of enjoyment. In addition to that, I know you like to pick up dollar books.
Right.
Yeah, and so you want to take it from here?
I think you just gave me the handoff. And this gets back to the great friendships I've made. So whatever year, 2004, I was hanging out in Jersey. Drew calls me and says, hey, have you taken any vacation time yet? I go, no, I haven't taken any time this year. Okay, you can go with us out to San Diego for Comic-Con. And all of a sudden, I had to go. I didn't have anything else scheduled. I was trapped with the guys. Not trapped. I was committed to going. But long story short, I do like to buy dollar books. For the longest time, I like dollar books, read them, not a big investment. So I went out there, I go to San Diego, I buy like 8 books. So I come back, Steve goes nuts. He goes, do you know how stupid you are? You went out there, you bought 8 books, with airfare, hotel, meals. You know what those 8 books cost you? They probably cost you $85 a piece. And I turned to Brandon and I go, great. Now he understands unit cost. And Brandon just found that extremely funny. Great. Now here, the rent, the utilities, the overhead doesn't connect. When it's at my expense, wait a minute, those are pretty expensive when you spread all the other costs. At one point in time, Steve, and that's why it doesn't surprise me that he's closing now. I mean, at one time, he was convinced, hey, I don't want to see any more young boys leave. And
Wait, what?
No. There were different workers that predated you guys, and he felt I don't want to see another generation of readers leave, and I'm just going to still be here. So he decided to go back and work for the law firm. He worked for Brandon's father's law firm. As he spent a full year doing it. As he was doing it, now and then Brandon and Tony and some of the others from the store would call him. And apparently at the law firm, when you got a call, they didn't, you'd identify yourself and they'd broadcast over the speaker, Steve Odo, X person is on the phone. Well, they decided to use the names of comic book characters.
Oh, that's great.
But apparently the receptionist mangled it, and they got a call one morning, and Mr. Odo, Hal Gordon is on the phone. And Steve didn't know, Jesus, is there really a Hal Gordon, or do they mean Hal Jordan? The other thing this was funny. One time we came in here and Brandon decided to clean the back room. And I don't know if the listeners are aware of this, but everyone at the table is, and many of the other close associates of the store. Steve is a huge Mountain Dew fan. So as Brandon and I were cleaning the back room, we found like one of those Staples paper boxes full of the different popcorn styrofoam. And there's about...
Oh, boy, there must be something very valuable in this box if they're protected by popcorn.
You're so right. There were like 5 Mountain Dew bottles. And Brandon just starts giggling and goes, hey, Steve, you want to get rid of this shit? And Steve goes, oh, those aren't my Mountain Dew bottles. And Brandon goes, who the hell do you think they are? And you would have thought like, stuff from an Egyptian tomb. It was so carefully laid out such that, the things were protected. Oh, those aren't mine. Who the hell do you think they are?
Oh, so I can throw them out then. Well, don't do that. Yes.
Much has been asked about, what is Steve going to do next? And we've addressed that. But, for you guys in particular, Matt, I know, you're not around much anymore. I don't know how much the closing of the store really, would affect you on a day-to-day basis. But, I mean, I guess just more generally, I mean, how do you feel about it closing?
I'm not glad. I'm not happy it's closing. I don't have too many dealings with the store anymore. But, the significant portion of my childhood was spent here, and I'm not happy to see it close. But at the end of the day, Steve is getting a little bit older. He's about the time for him to retire anyway. So, honestly, for me, what I would love for Steve to do is, he talks about how, he wants to travel, walk the earth like Kung Fu. And like, hey, not for nothing, I hope he does it. I want to see pictures of Steve like in front of the temples at Machu Picchu. I want to see him doing that goofy thing that all the tourists do when they try to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pizza. Like, I want to see all those photos. He deserves the retirement that he's got coming to him. That being said, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to spend the next year or two just watching all the TV shows he hasn't been watching. But, I hope he does get to travel the world. So that'd be awesome for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things where he's, for years spoken about how much of a burden the store is and how much it takes out of him. And as you alluded to, these other things that he would like to do. So now it's sort of like, all right, this is your shot.
Yeah. You got some money, do your thing.
Wow. A bunch of us, this has been the focal point and the connection point and the clubhouse and the social club for all of us. I'm convinced our friendships are going to extend and transcend this. There's no doubt in my mind on that. I think it'll take a different form. My ability to just come in here and goof off and kill time until I go to lunch or go to dinner is going to be gone, and I'll probably just meet you guys at a restaurant. Regrettably, I think it'll be more infrequent. It'll be less frequent than it is. But I think there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I've been to people's weddings. I've been to people's parents' funerals. They've come to mine. I've traveled. So I think all of there's probably about 7 or 8 of us for whom our friendships are going to just continue irrespective of this thing being closed in 7 or 8 weeks.
I throw this question to you specifically because, we spoke at the beginning of this recording about the Rich Roney seat. And the other phrase has always been Rich Roney brings in the crowds. I mean, I can speak for myself when I say that if you're not coming in, I probably won't either.
When you sent out the email about this podcast asking, what day is good for everyone, I said, well, here's a good day for me. Oh, and if you could pair me with Rich Roney, that'd be awesome. So I love having the Roney seat for your podcast.
And listen, I echo that. Separately, Anthony and I had a discussion, and I expressed interest. I said, is Matt doing it? When's he doing it? And I'll sync up with him. So it's mutual.
And I thank both of you because I think you guys have been a fantastic combination. But yeah, I mean, again, we've always said Rich Roney brings in the crowds, and I can speak for myself when I say that. If I know you're coming in, I'll make the effort to come in. And so I think, not to put too much pressure on you, but I think, to a certain extent, the continuation of the dinners, I think, will depend in good part on you.
Maybe you can host a barbecue at your place for us. Wouldn't that be special?
Yeah, I think I'll keep coming in, and I'll meet you guys at Mickey's.
We almost blew his cover up.
But I mean, now you come in, I'd say on average every other week, roughly. So do you think you would knock it down to once a month?
I think the contact might be less frequent, but conceivably, hopefully, it'll be a little bit more meaningful. Maybe
we'll even get Matt Casey for an occasional guest appearance.
Oh yeah, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, no, it's a no. It's literally. I think the distance is a thing for me because I live in South Brooklyn.
Personally, I don't spend nearly the amount of time at the store that I used to. I mean, I don't work here anymore on any basis, and again, even the time to just come in and hang out, it's really very minimal, and it's not out of a lack of interest or anything like that. And whenever we do get together, wherever we get together, it's always a great time. But in terms of the store being that destination, I can't say it's as powerful for me as it used to be.
But it's still there a little bit.
But it's still there, right?
And as even though I haven't been here in a long time, and I have my problems with Steve, I'm still not happy this place is closing. So
you're absolutely right. The store as a contact point or location, in 8 weeks that ain't going to be the case. That's gone. But and Matt, I know that you've been immersed in your life in Brooklyn. I haven't kept in touch with you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it works both ways. I could have picked up the phone too.
Well, but I will say one thing Anthony and I have done, and this is. Anthony's introduced me to a number of TV shows I never would have watched otherwise. But we've gotten to the point where possibly once a week or every other week, I'll spend a good 45 minutes or an hour on the phone with you talking about anything, whether it's TV shows, books, movies, and, some of those Sunday afternoons are just very satisfying.
I think maybe the title of this episode should just be Friends. Great friendships.
And different eras. Different eras. Good friends. Good friends across different eras. I will carry my good friends across different eras in a gunnysack.
How do you top that?
I'm just reluctant. I'm reluctant to end because I feel like as soon as the mics are off.
Oh, the best stuff's going to be. Even with all this, I think it's going to boil down to good editing.
I thought you were going to say friendships.
If I had 30 seconds for a gunny sack, I'd edit it with my good eons, eras.
I think if you really had to distill it down, it boils down to friendship and fun.
Yes.
Where have I heard that before?
I'm getting that tattooed on my arm.
I mean, if nothing else, I hope our listeners take away from this that we have formed some very
Yeah.
great
Yes.
friendships.
But you know what? If you do have a tattooed on your arm, when you're carrying the gunny sack, it will obscure the tattoo.
Yes, yes.
Yes. On that note, gentlemen, I thank you both very much for taking part in this. Matt, it was great to see you. I hope that we, maybe could see you a little bit more.
I'm going to try to come out a little bit more often, yeah.
And Rich, I think I speak for both of us when I say we were honored to have the Rich Roney seat tonight and look forward to having the Rich Roney seat in the future.
It's mutual. Thank you, guys.
Here, here.
Thank you to everyone who listened to this episode. I hope you tune in for future ones. And don't be a flat squirrel.
If I forget just who I am, that you will bury me, that you will slaughter me, tear all my